Doubleheader starts in H-Town, 7:30 Eastern. Warriors taking on James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and the Rockets. And it's off to Staples Center. With the Clippers hosting Giannis and the Bucks, our coverage begins with Stephen A's pregame Sports Center at 7 on ESPN and the app. Gardner Minshew and that stash will be taking a backseat to Nick Foles when the Jags return from their bye a week from Sunday at Indy. Foles has recovered from a broken collarbone, will continue to earn that $50+ million bonus contract before he was injured.
What factors push you towards Nick? Okay.
Well, I think for me, it was, looking back at all the work that we put in, and I just go back to the experience and what he's going to be able to do. And I think that's going to give us a better chance of winning right now.
Oh, Max Kell, Marcus Spear still here with us. I know how much you love Nick Foles, and he should have stayed in Philly, and good old St. Nick's coming. Tell me this. You think he can lead the Jags to the playoffs?
I do. I think he can, and I think it's because of exactly what everyone suspects, that Nick Foles magic thing. Now, that can't exist in a vacuum. It's not like Nick Foles magic, that stuff that he does, or the fact that guys like to play with him and for him, and he's obviously a great leader. It's not that he can take an inferior team and suddenly presto changeo make it good. He's not that kind of player. But if you have a team that can do some things, particularly run the ball, and if you look at the Jags' offensive line, one of the things you've noticed throughout the years, the offensive line has been playing better and better. And you have a running back, which they do. And you have defensive talent, which they do. Foles' presence has already shown that he can make those things gel. And he can lead a team like that. Now, they're 4-5. That's not great, and they're not going to win the division. But if you look at the rest of their schedule, just like look at upcoming games, they get a bye week. Then at Colts, okay, the Colts are good. They're not great. At Tennessee, very winnable game. They get Tampa Bay. They get the Chargers at home. So it's not like the biggest piece of cake schedule ever, but those are all winnable games coming up. And so it's not like Nick Foles is going to take an inferior team and beat these super teams because Nick Foles is under center now. But if you have the elements I mentioned now on a team, and you have that kind of schedule, yeah, Nick Foles, he's already shown in multiple seasons late in the season, for a team that was floundering, that looked like, last year at least, that looked like, oh, they may not make the playoffs, but they had some of the elements I just mentioned, he can put them over the top. I absolutely think Nick Foles can lead them to the playoffs.
I disagree with you. I don't think there's any way in hell that's happening, and it's for a couple of reasons. Regardless of Nick Foles and his heroics, and I'm not going to summarily dismiss that, you have to take into consideration that they're 4-5. They're 2 games back of Houston, who's already beaten them twice this year. So since you've already lost 2 games to Houston, you'd have to get a 3-game edge on them over the last 7 weeks. I don't see that happening. You do have 2 games against Indy. I don't see them winning both of those games. Maybe they'll split 1-1. I don't see the split of 2. And then you scour the rest of the AFC. You look at Oakland. You look at the Chargers. You look at Kansas City. You look at the Buffalo Bills. I think the combination of all those things, we can't even ignore the Pittsburgh Steelers, who's coming up the rear on the Baltimore Ravens, 2 games behind, but still at 4-4. I think it's a whole, even though it's not insurmountable per se, I think it's a hole that's too deep for them to come out of. Not to mention the fact that Jalen Ramsey is now gone, so you got one of the elite corners in the game that has left your defense, which means your defense is not as good as it once was, and you take all of those things into consideration. I just think the odds are stacked against them. I think Nick Foles can get them on a roll. I think they could be a 500 team, maybe go as far as 9-7. I can see them winning 5 of their last 7 games per se, but in order for them to make the playoffs, in my mind, I think they'd have to win 6 of their last 7 or all 7 in order to pull off a wild card spot, because they're not going to catch Houston, and I don't think they're going to do that.
he's coming back from a shoulder that we really don't know how he's able to sustain. We saw Cam Newton deal with a shoulder, and it did not look good. So with the injury per se, I struggle with finding them a way into the playoffs. But being 4-5 right now with the strength of the AFC, it's going to be tough for the Jaguars to dig themselves out of this one.
I agree with you guys. Not going to be easy, but look at the role he went on with Philadelphia last year towards the end of the season. Look at the Super Bowl run he went on. He's done things that weren't easy where the odds were against him before. And Gardner Minshew, if you're going to bench him, I would assume Nick Foles is healthy because he's shown enough, even if he regressed a little bit recently, maybe some of that magic wore off, he's shown enough where you're not going to start an injured guy over him. So I'm assuming, Marcus, that Nick quarterback clean and blocking for your running back. When you have a guy like Fournette, I believe Nick Foles can get it done. He can do it. Odds are against him, but he's done it before.
All right, yeah. Well, we know the odds are against him. Thank you for throwing in that caveat as your cushion point, as your cushion. All I'm trying to say is this: nobody called the Jacksonville Jaguars scrubbed. Nobody said they can't win football games. What we're saying is when you're talking about them winning 6 of their last 7 or all 7 of their remaining games, that's Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes territory. When you're talking about something like that. That is a big, and I know that Nick Foles went on a run, but I'm just not that kind of run. The playoffs are different. I understand there's one and you're done, and that's it. The regular season, you got to count on everybody showing up. I don't know about that, Max. I don't know about that.
Last year, the Eagles were a 500 team. Nick Foles took over. They went on precisely the run you're talking about. And won a playoff game at Soldier Field against a team many people were predicting.
And how many times do you think they're going to do that? How many times do you think they could do that?
Well, I mean,
hold on, wait a minute. First of all, how many times do you think they're going to do that? And hold on. Secondly, the Jacksonville Jaguars, albeit talented, they're not scrubs. They weren't those Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't have that level of offensive talent available to them. They don't have that, Max.
You're not wrong, but he can lead a running-based offense, like a run-based offense, if you have a good offensive line. And I want to mention something. You said that's Tom Brady territory. Nick Foles beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl.
Max,
Nick Foles has done that.
That doesn't mean he's Tom Brady.
Max, we talking about
Tom Brady threw for 500 yards when he lost that Super Bowl.
We talking about Jacksonville winning 6 of the last 7 or possibly 7 to get in, Max. They ain't winning 6 of the last 7, man. They just not. You look at this. You look at what they have. First of all, Oakland's not playing bad. That's going to be a difficult out. The Chargers look like they found something against Green Bay. That's not going to be an easy out. And then the Colts as well. I know Jacoby is down, but by the time they play them in the last game, he'll be back. This is not, like, we're not just going, I can't right now say the Jacksonville Jaguars are in position because of getting Nick Foles back to rip off 6 or 7 games.
I know what it looks like right now, and you're right in terms of what the odds will tell you. I'm saying, would any of us really be so surprised if they off a bye with Nick Foles now won their next 2 games? Then we turn around, they're 6-5? Oh, that's a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
So yes, of course it's a long shot when you got to win most of your remaining games. He's done it before, guys.
Okay.
Max, keeping hope
we'll
alive
see you in
there.
a few weeks, Max.
I'm going to give you all the props in the world. They rip off 6 of the last 7, Max.
Hey, Marcus, Molly, here's what we do know. Max will be around. I mean, after all, it ain't like he doing anything Saturday night that's going to kiss it up there and prevent him from coming to work on a Monday morning. You know what I'm saying? He'll be there on Monday morning once the season comes to an end. He'll be all right.
Stephen A., you put 3 little girls to bed on a weekend night, and you tell me who did the work that night.
It's real.
That's true.
It's real.
That's true.
It's real.
That's true.
Fair, Max.
I give you that. I give you that.
Daddy
That's
time
very
is
fair.
crucial.
But a Saturday night, weeknights, Saturday night, man.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't deal with that no more.
We get you, Stephen A.
I need a shot of espresso to get through the bedtime routine.
He ain't telling the whole story.
Max is taking espresso shots. People are taking other shots. You know what it is. Nick Foles, 30-21 as a starter. Let's keep it rolling, fellas. Next up, LSU, Bama. Everybody better tune into that one. Paul Feinbaum has some advice. We know who Marcus Spears is rooting for, and of course, Stephen A. Stay here.